kai mauri ora. Ko te mea tuatahi, ngā mihi nui ki te tangata whenua o ēnei whenua, tēnā koutou. Ko te mea tuarua, ngā mihi nui ki o tātou tūpuna, haere, haere, haere. Ko te mea tuatoru, ngā mihi nui ki tēnei whare, tēnā koe. Ngā mihi nui ki a koe, Richard, tēnā koe. Ko te mea tuawha, ngā mihi nui ki a koutou katoa. Nō reira, tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa. Kia ora everyone, it's great to see you all today. My name is Amelia Butler and I am an Indigenous Māori woman. I'm based in Los Angeles, California, but actually right now I'm back home in New Zealand, and the Māori name for New Zealand is Aotearoa. So I'm back here in the very far north of New Zealand, so in a very small rural community called Whangaruru. And if you are familiar with New Zealand, it's about 1 hour north of Whangarei. Right, so I started off our meeting today speaking in Te Reo Māori, the Māori language. And the first thing I said was I acknowledged all the Indigenous people of all the lands we're currently on. I'm here in New Zealand on my ancestral homeland, the land of the Ngāti tribe. That's one of my tribes. And I'm acknowledging you all, tuning in from all over the world, specifically acknowledging the Indigenous tribe, the Indigenous peoples of the lands that we are currently on. The second thing I acknowledged was all of our ancestors. So that's everyone who's passed on, people who maybe we didn't even know their names, people who may have even recently passed. As Māori, we believe that our ancestors are with us, that they're guiding us, they're protecting us, and that they're here in this space with us today. So we acknowledge them as them being with us. Then the third thing I acknowledged was this whare, this house, although it's looking very different these days. We're using Zoom a lot. So just acknowledging Zoom for being our gathering place, our meeting place, and being the platform that we're all able to connect with each other today. And then a special acknowledgement to Richard, who very lucky to have Richard with us today, who has organized this whole amazing conference. So ngā mihi nui ki a koe, e hoa, acknowledging you there, Richard. And then lastly, I acknowledged all of you. So ngā mihi nui ki a koutou katoa. Thank you all for being here. Thank you for joining me today to learn a bit more about Te Reo Māori and how speaking Māori can bring on an Indigenous mindset and an Indigenous worldview. So as is traditional in my culture, we start everything of significance with a karakia. And a karakia can be translated as either a prayer or an incantation of nature. And so this specific karakia that I'll be sharing today connects us back with our Sky Father, who in Māori we call Ranginui, and our Earth Mother, who in Māori we call Papa Tuanuku. So as Māori and within the Māori culture, we believe in many atua, many gods or goddesses. And Ranginui, the Sky Father, and Papa Tuanuku are particularly significant because it is them that they came into being and they created the world we're in today. So our creation story in Māori culture revolves around their tight union where they were joined together in darkness and then they were pushed apart by their children, the many atua, specifically the god of the forest, Tāne Mahuta, to bring about the world we live in today with the sky above and the earth below. And as Māori, we call that Te Ao Māori, the world of light. All right, so here is the karakia. I'm also going to screen share it for those who are interested in following along with the kupu, with the words. Otherwise, I do invite you to just kind of sit back and relax. So you can do this a few ways. You can either follow along as I read these words. I also have the English translation there in the brackets, or you can just sit and experience the language. So a big part of our Māori language is that it has a very strong spiritual element. So there's a wairua, there's a spirit within the language. And so that's something to experience. And so you can kind of sit relaxed, have your feet on the ground and just kind of let the words kind of enter you and just listen to the sounds of the words. You're welcome to close your eyes, or you're also welcome to read along as I speak the words. Right, so this is our karakia tīmatanga, our beginning karakia. Ko te reo ngā manu tērā, ka tangi nei I te ao. Kua uru ko te rā, ki waenga nui, ia rangi nui, ia papatua nuku. Ko rangi nui ki runga, ko papatua nuku ki raro. Ka heke iho ko ngā roimata ia rangi nui. Ka hiki ake ko te kohu ia papatua nuku. Ko te tohu tērā. Ka ora tawa I te ao, I te pō. Tūturu whakamaua kia tina. Tina.
Tina.
Hui e, tai.
Tai ki e.
Kia ora. Wonderful, thank you. So just to read that out in English, so you can have an understanding of what I was saying. There is the voice of birds heralding daylight as the sun enters between the Sky Father and the Earth Mother. Sky Father above, Earth Mother below. Rangi's tears fall. Papa's mist rises. Thus being the sign that we shall live in light and darkness. This is my commitment to them. Gather, unite. Right, so in our Māori culture, when it rains, we see the rain as, ngā roimata ia rangi nui, which is the tears of rangi nui. And, due to the separation, rangi nui is crying for his wife, Papa Tuanuku, our Earth Mother. And in reverse, Papa Tuanuku lets her mist rise, and she's reaching out to her husband, rangi nui. And so our whole language exists within this first creation story, which is how the world we live in today came into being. All right, so now that we've started and we've had our beginning karakia, I'm just going to share a little bit about myself so you can find out a bit more about who I am. So ko wai o, who am I? So as I said, my name's Amelia. I'm based in Los Angeles, but I'm here in Aotearoa, New Zealand at this time. So I am the founder of Learn Māori Abroad, and we specifically teach learners who live outside of New Zealand, connecting them with the Māori language and culture. So I teach Te Reo Māori. I also teach haka workshops. Haka is our very well-known warrior or war dance, our war challenge. And then I also have a traditional Māori performance group. So here you can see me. This is me in California teaching one of the most well-known haka, the kamate haka. And that's me teaching a Polynesian dance school. Here I am in the middle performing at the San Diego Polynesian Festival with my group. And this is my group here. So this is Ngā Anahira Māori, the Māori angels. And so the word in Māori for angels is anahira. And with Te Reo Māori, you'll find that we do have a lot of transliterations. So words that are taken from the English and, we've made them into a Māori word, such as aporo, which is apple, or Wikitoria, which is the woman's name, Victoria. All right, so our name is Ngā Anahira, which means the angels, but it's also significant because we're based in Los Angeles, and in Spanish, Los Angeles means the angels. So that's where we got that name from, and the Māori name for Los Angeles is Ngā Anahira. All right, so that's a little bit about me. The first thing we're going to be looking at today is pēpeha. So does anyone know, and I've got it on the screen there, does anyone know what pēpeha is, or has anyone ever heard of this before? No? Okay, no problem. So a pēpeha is how we identify ourselves in Te Ao Māori, the Māori world. So these words, so Te Ao Māori, the Māori world, that also can translate as the Māori culture. Right, so Te Ao Māori. So our pepeha is based on how we connect to our mountain, our body of water, our canoe, our tribe or tribes, sub-tribe, marae, ancestors, and family. So there's a word in there that you may not know, and it's the word marae. So marae are our traditional Māori meeting complexes. And within that complex, we have our traditional houses known as whare nui or whare tupuna. So big houses or ancestral houses. And each tribe is associated with a marae. And so I'll be sharing my marae as well with you all today. And then why is pepeha important? So as Māori and as Indigenous people, our whole culture is based upon relationships. So that's relationships with our family, with our ancestors, it's our relationship with nature, it's our relationship to each other, it's a relationship, to our generation. So a word in Māori that we have is whakapapa, which means family genealogy. And as Māori, our whole culture exists on a matrix of our whakapapa. So that's, everyone who came before us, all of our ancestors, and it also includes all of our uri, our descendants. And as Māori, we can whakapapa right back to the beginning of the universe, the beginnings of the world, which is Ranginui and Papatuanuku. All right, so pepeha, we're going to talk about that more today, but today I'm going to have everyone here also create a shortened version of a pepeha. So here is my pepeha here, and I'm going to share this with you so you get an idea of, me and who I am from a Māori perspective. So if I was meeting someone, who is Māori, or if I was speaking on our marae, our traditional gathering places, I would share my pepeha to establish my relationships, my connections with those who are listening. Right. And so all the time as Māori, we're looking to establish that relationship with that other person. How are we connected to them? So, anei taku pepeha, this is my pepeha. Feel free to follow along. Ko hurua ki te maunga, ko punaruku te awa, ko mātātua te waka, ko te uri o hiki hiki te hapu, ko Ngāti wai te iwi, ko moko o whangaruru te marae, ko Amelia Butler aho. And in English, hururiki is the mountain, punaruku is the river, mātātua is the canoe, te uri o hiki hiki is the sub-tribe, Ngāti wai is the tribe, moko or whangaruru is the gathering place, and I am Amelia Butler, right? So in terms of, our canoes, so we all also share, we have different canoe or waka that our ancestors came from to Aotearoa New Zealand. And, we believe that they came from our ancient homeland, Hawaii, although they really are coming from other areas of the Pacific, other areas of the Pacific Ocean and Pacific Islands. So our largest grouping in Te Ao Māori is our iwi, our tribe. Then a tribe is made up of several groups of hapu, sub-tribe. And then within the sub-tribe are several groups of whānau, families. And our word whānau has a much more broader meaning than the English word. It translates more as extended families. So that's not only our children and our partner, but it's also our aunties, our uncles, our cousins. So we have a very expansive view of whānau, of family. And then moko is the name of my marae, and it's here in Whangaruru where I am, so our gathering place. Then I popped in there a picture. So this is my mountain, ko hurua ki te maunga. This is the view here where I am. I'm living closer to the moana, the sea, but this is my mountain. All right, so now what we're going to do is we're all going to create our own pepeha, a shortened version. So I want you to have a think about, what mountain do you connect to? So as Māori, we're born into these things. So we're born into our tribe, we're born into our mountain. So as a Māori person, all it is finding out from your whānau, your family, what is my mountain? So when we connect back to our mountains, these are our ancestral maunga, our ancestral mountains. And if you're Indigenous, you might have that too. And so there's a mountain that your family and your ancestors have always connected with. If that's the case, that is your mountain. If you don't identify as Indigenous, what I invite you to do is to think about, what mountain do you connect to? Perhaps there's a mountain that you always go to go hiking, or perhaps there was a mountain next to your home when you were a child. So you want to think, what mountain do I connect to? And that also could be in more of a spiritual sense. So one of my students had, Mount Fuji in Japan as their mountain, although they'd never been there, but they just felt a spiritual connection with that mountain. Right? So go ahead and think about what mountain do you connect to? And we're going to do the same for our body of water. So river or ocean, it could also be a lake. And if you identify as Indigenous, your peoples, your tribe may already have that body of water. Otherwise, you want to think, about what would your body of water be. Thirdly, we have gathering place. All right. So as a Māori, that is always our marae. But for non-Māori, that could be your yoga studio. It could be your church. Maybe it's the group that you meet up and practice speaking in a certain language with. So that could look different, depending where you're from and, what you're interested in and your hobbies. It could be your grandmother's house because, you go there every Sunday for a meal, right? So what is your gathering place? Or where is it, or what is it? And then lastly, who are the Indigenous people of the land you live on? So I acknowledge, the Indigenous peoples of all the lands we're on, but I'd love for you to acknowledge the lands of the Indigenous people and the name of the Indigenous people whose lands you're on. If you're not sure, you could do a quick Google search in Los Angeles. When I am out there, I've been here for a few months in New Zealand, but I live on the lands of the Tongva, Chumash, and Tataviam tribes, so our Native American brothers and sisters. And so as a, Indigenous woman, as someone who is Māori and speaks Māori, it's always really important for us to acknowledge the Indigenous peoples of the lands we're on, especially when we're learning an Indigenous language, to find that out. All right. So I'd love to hear from some of you if anyone's feeling brave and would like to share these 4 elements, your mountain, your body of water, your gathering place, and the Indigenous people of the land you live on. If you're not feeling as brave, kei te pai, that's all good. You're welcome just to type it in the chat, because it would be still great to read, about what you felt connected to in terms of your mountain, your body of water, the place you gather, and the Indigenous people. All right. So would anyone like to share? Anyone feeling brave?
I'll volunteer since no one else is.
Oh, kia ora, thank you.
The mountain I would say I connect to the most is Mount Imbabora, which is I actually can see from my bedroom window, and it's just a beautiful way to start the day. And I'd be able to see it right now if it weren't so dark out. Body of water, I would say probably the Gulf of Mexico, just because I've spent so much time there. As far as a gathering place, that's kind of hard to say. There's really hasn't been much of a social life for me since the pandemic hit, but I would just say my home. That might not be a traditional answer, but that's kind of how I feel about it, I guess, my personal take on it. And the Indigenous people of the land that I live on is the Quichua Otavaleño.
Beautiful. Wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing, Mihi. That was really great work.
Thank you.
Oh, all right. Would anyone else like to share?
Sure, why not? So I wrote in the chat, koloti te maunga. Is that how you say it? So Mount Lofty is, Mount Lofty is the highest mountain, like in Adelaide where I live. And it's like lots of people go hiking up there and stuff, which I've done a lot of time. And then ko Mari te awa, so the Murray River in Australia. I grew up in a little town called Berry, which is right on the river. I'm not sure about gathering place at this point. And the Indigenous people here are the Ghana.
Wonderful, ngā mihi, great work. So for you, I would invite you to find out what is the Aboriginal name for the mountain and the body of water, right?
Yep.
So awesome. So sometimes, as for those who are learning an Indigenous language, it makes more sense to, instead of, translating it into Māori, to find out the name of the Indigenous people, like what do they call it? And that way we are honoring them when we, share the name in their language within, the context of learning Māori. So yeah, ngā mihi, thanks for sharing. All right, well, wonderful. It was great hearing a couple, and then do feel free to share in the chat. I'd still love to read what those of you did come up with for this, to create your own pepeha. All right, so going on, and I know you already did it, but we're going to translate the pepeha now. I know Beno already did that. So Beno, we're going to translate it. So here is the translation. So ko, whatever the name of the mountain is, te maunga. So ko, whatever the awa river, the sea is, te awa moana. So if you're talking about a river, you're going to use the word awa. If you're talking about the sea, the ocean, you're going to use the word moana. Moana. All right. And then lastly, ko zed te wahi hui. So I've put wahi hui because, so that translates as gathering place. All right. And the reason I'm using this instead of the word marae, because the marae, the word marae and the concept and what it is a uniquely Māori concept. So, if you are Māori, then you would use marae for your ancestral marae. But otherwise, we're going to use wahi hui. And then we've got the Indigenous tribe of the land we live on. So, ko e te iwi o te wahi e noho nei o. A is the tribe of the place where I live. All right, so have a go, see if you can translate that, even if it is just one line into Māori, and then feel free to share it in the chat. And I did want to see if anyone did want to share, have a go at sharing it out loud in Māori.
I could try. Oh,
awesome.
Okay. Thanks, Richard. Thank you, Richard. Ko popokatepati te maunga, ko Harlem te awa, ko home te waihui, ko the tribe, ko kairi shoko, te iwi o te wahi e noho neau.
Oh, wonderful. Ka mau te wehi. Excellent. That was really great. Fantastic job. Yeah, you did really great. So for those who may not know, you can see that little line above the A there, the A in Māori. That is called a tohuto. That's a macron. So for that vowel, we make it just a little longer. So instead of saying wahi, we would say wahi. All right. Wonderful. Ngā mihi. Thank you so much. Would anyone else like to share in Te Reo Māori?
Sure. Oh, okay.
Awesome, Richard.
Ko,
Karapiwa.
ko ruitoa te maunga, ko ti te awa, and then I don't know what the gathering place would be. And the fourth thing, I'm not sure, because do you say where you are now or where you're from?
So for this particular one, that fourth one, you're going to say the tribe of the place you live.
Okay.
So right now, yes, wherever you're currently living, currently at right now, that's the tribe you will acknowledge.
Okay. So even though I'm indigenous from a different part of the world, I don't acknowledge the indigeneity. I talk about here. Yes,
you can actually do both. So
Okay.
you can say, and I can pop that in because thanks, Richard. Okay, and this can apply to everyone. So I've put ko B to iwi. So B is the tribe. Oopsies.
Okay.
All right. So and everyone can speak to that. So you might not have a tribe per se, but you've got people or peoples or nations. All right. So for me, my mum is Māori, but my dad is Pākehā. So originally from Ireland and Scotland. So, you know, if your ancestors are from, for example, Ireland, you would say ko Airani te iwi. So Ireland is my peoples and my nation. So we go back to where our ancestors came from for that one. So thanks, Richard. Yes, so we'll add in a fifth there where you can acknowledge your indigeneity or, you know, your people or your nation or where your ancestors are from.
Okay. Ko wera te iwi, ko Mahedonia te iwi o te wahi e noho nei au, right?
Ai, ka whai. Yes. Oh, wonderful. So so your peoples are from Wales? Wera? Very cool. Wonderful. Ngā mihi nui. Thanks so much, Richard. All right. And did anyone else want to share their pepeha in Te Reo Māori? Oh, I think I saw someone with their hand up. Right. Yep, go ahead. Yes. Ai, kapai.
Okay, right. Ko jaboncillo de manga. Ko la boca de moana. Ko home de wahi. Ko that's a new one, right?
Oh, you can, yeah. You can skip that one if you have, yeah.
Right.
That's the newer one.
Ko manteños te iwi o te wahi noho nei au.
Very good.
Right.
Karawe, great job. It's you know, the pronunciation is just like Spanish. So
right.
Yeah. You speak Spanish. It's you always get it really good because it's the same within even the same vowels and you know how we say the letters. So kia ora.
Right. It's actually from the coast of Ecuador.
Oh, Ecuador. Very cool. Kia ora, ngā mihi. Thanks for sharing. All right. Did anyone else want to share? Even those who don't have their video on, you're also welcome to share. All right. Ka pai. Great, everyone. Okay, so, you know, this exercise, you know, as well as an exercise in, you know, learning and being able to speak a little bit of Te Reo Māori, it's also us kind of looking at how we can connect to the world from an Indigenous mindset. So, you know, we talked about, you know, what is our mountain? What is our body of water? And it's a different way in our thinking. So in the Western world, we don't often think about like, what's our mountain, what's our body of water. But in an Indigenous mindset, we do. We're thinking about these elements of nature, how we connect to them, and also how we connect to our ancestors. So from a Māori worldview and an Indigenous worldview, we see ourselves as one with the environment, connected to the environment, and we relate to things like our mountain and our river just as we would people. And we can really see this in the language. So when we say ko wai tō maunga, we actually, in Māori, what we're actually saying is, who is your mountain? So ko wai means who, and then tō maunga is your mountain. So ko wai tō maunga, who is your mountain? But actually in English, we translate this sentence as, what is your mountain? And that just goes back to the differences between an Indigenous worldview and a Western or, colonial worldview. So with the Western worldview, it's seen that, man is above nature, whereas from an Indigenous worldview, we see ourselves as being part of nature, one with nature and connected to nature. And so, as you can see, we don't see a difference. So if I was to ask you, ko wai koe, I'm saying, who are you? Ko wai koe, who are you? It's just the same. Ko wai tō maunga, who is your mountain? So as you can see, it doesn't shift in how I relate to a person and how I relate to my mountain. Whereas in English, though, to be correct, we would actually say, who are you? And then what is your mountain? All right, so seeing those differences there with the translation, as well as with the worldviews behind what we're translating. Okay, so in Māori, we call it, as I said, Te Ao Māori, and then, which is the Māori worldview, Māori culture, and then Te Ao Pākehā, which is the Western worldview. So as I said earlier, my mum is Māori and my dad is Pākehā. So usually Pākehā translates as someone who is non-Māori, but more specifically, someone who is, white or, from, European heritage. And so that's the name that we use, Pākehā. And then the third word that we have is tauiwi, which would be known as like a foreigner, like someone they're not Māori, they're not Pākehā, they're tauiwi, they're a foreigner. Okay, so those are some kupu there for you to know. Okay, the next thing I have here on my questions list is no hea koe, and we're going to answer this question today. So no hea koe means where are you from? And if we were seeing two Māori elders meet, two of our, kuia or kaumatua, our elders, and they were meeting within a Te Ao Māori context, they would say, kia ora, which is hello. And then they would say, no hea koe, where are you from? Right? So where are you from is the most important question from a Māori perspective versus, in the Western world, we meet someone new, we say, hi, what's your name? Or hi, how are you? Say, oh, hi, I'm Amelia. What's your name? And, those are kind of the initial questions we ask when meeting someone new from a Western perspective versus from a Māori perspective, it's no hea koe. And that also comes down to the differences between us as Māori and Indigenous having the focus on a collective culture versus in the West having a focus on the individual culture. So by asking no hea koe, we get to find out where that person is from, and we go straight away to establishing the relationship, the whanaungatanga with that person, right? So by saying where they're from, we can relate it back to something else we know, like, oh, okay, I have an ancestor from that area, and find out how we're connected in our whakapapa, in our family genealogy. Whereas with the Western world, we're asking, how are you? What's your name? Because there is that focus on the individual versus how we're connected or our relationships to each other. All right, so we're going to go ahead and answer this question now. So for me, if someone asked me, no hea koe, where are you from? I would say, no Aotearoa ahau. I am from New Zealand. All right, would someone like to share where they are from in Māori? So you're going to say no, and then Aotearoa, or that's where I'm from, or the country you're from, and then aho. I'm going to pop that in the chat. No. Oh, great. Thank you, Siru. All right, so would someone like to share awaha out loud? The answer to that question. No, wherever you're from, aho.
I'd like to try.
Yeah, go for it. Kia ora.
No America aho. Would it
Ka
be
pai,
normal
very
to
good.
get more specific, like no California aho?
Yeah, you could. So it would really just depend on the context. You know, say if because I teach all of my students, well, most of my students live abroad. And so often, you know, we'll identify ourselves based on what country we're in. But if it's appropriate to say, you know, more specifically, I'm from California, then that's fine too. So no America aho, no California aho, either one. And then both of those words are transliterations. America for America, and then California for California. All right, ngā mihi, thanks for sharing. Would anyone else like to share where they're from?
No wera aho.
Awesome, ka rawe, tēnā pai, Richard. No wera ia, he's from Wales. All right, anyone else?
No España aho.
Very good.
From Spain. I'm not sure whether to say no España aho or no Spain, Spain aho.
Okay, so in Māori, we can say no haniora aho. Oop.
Okay, no anihora aho.
There we go. So for example, if I was, so in Māori, we say te reo paniora for Spanish, te reo haina for, you know, Chinese, te reo wiwi for French. So talking about these languages, te reo Pākehā for English, te reo Tahiti for Tahitian. So we have the different words for our, you know, different countries, and we can apply them to languages as well. So te reo meaning the language. Kia ora, thank you. So yes, no paniora aho. I am from Spain.
Thank you.
All right, ngā mihi everyone. Thank you for sharing. Wonderful work. Okay, so lastly, we're going to look at how to say what's your name in Te Reo Māori. So while this isn't the most important question from a Māori context that you would ask someone, these days, obviously, it is a very well-known and commonly used question. So we're going to learn that one. So ko wai tō ingoa means what is your name? And as you can see, the ko wai again. So really, in Māori, I'm saying, who is your name? Again, because we have a significance around names in our culture, and often we are given names of our ancestors, our tūpuna. So again, in Māori, I'm saying, who is your name? But that doesn't make grammatical sense in English. So in English, it's what is your name? All right, so ko wai tō ingoa. So there's a few ways I can answer this. I can say, you know, ko Amelia aho, ko Amelia o, or ko Amelia tōku ingoa. So those first two are I am Amelia, and that last one is Amelia is my name. All right. And you might see I've used, you know, aho, and we've also used o. So that's A-H-A-U in English, and then A-U. So I'm from up north here, the north of the North Island. So here, so I use aho a lot more. So just like English, how there's, Australian English, British English, American English, we too have different dialectal differences between our tribes. So while we understand each other, there are some differences depending on what iwi, what tribe you're from. So here in the north, we do use aho more. In other parts, they, drop certain letters. So instead of saying whenua, which means land, they would say wenua. But again, just like we understand people who are speaking American English or British English, we still understand each other, but there's just those dialectal differences depending on where in New Zealand you come from. All right, so we're going to try this now. So it's up to you which one you say. Ko waito ingoa, what is your name? All right, so this time we're going to speak all together. All right, so we'll say ko, and then you're going to insert your name there, and then aho, and we're going to do all three. We'll start off with ko, then your name, aho. All right, I'm going to count us in Māori, so I'll say toru wha, which means 3, 4. Okay, you're welcome to be on mute or off mute. Kei a koe te tikanga, it's up to you. All right, here we go. Toru wha. Ko,
Ko Amanda.
Benoa.
Oh,
aho.
Aho.
Very good. Tēnā pai. All right, the next one. So ko Amelia O, inserting your name there instead of mine. Toru wha. Ko
Ko
Amanda. Oh,
Benoa.
Rosa.
O.
Oh,
Ka pai. Very good. All right, and then the last one, it's a little longer. So it's ko Amelia tōku ingoa. And you can see the macron there above the O, the O. Makes that a slightly longer sound, tōku instead of tōku. Okay, here we go. Toru wha. Ko
Ko Amanda.
Amelia
Tōku ingoa.
Toku Ingoa.
Great, wonderful. Tēnā pai, everyone. All right, so now we know how to answer 2 pātai, 2 questions in Te Reo Māori. Ko waito ingoa, what is your name? And no hea koe, where are you from? All right, so I'd love to have a few people share that. All right, so for example, kia ora, ko Amelia tōku ingoa no Aotearoa aho. All right, so you can start with our most well-known greeting, kia ora, which means to be well, to be alive, to be life. It's a lot more than the English hello. It's a well wish. So start with kia ora, then you're going to say your name and where you're from. All right, so kia ora, ko Amelia tōku ingoa no Aotearoa aho. All right, who wants to give that a go? So 2 lines in Te Reo
No one else
Māori.
wants to? I'll give it a go.
Awesome, go for it.
Ko beno tōku ingoa. And no Australia aho.
Tēnā pai, very good. All right, so the Māori name for Australia is Aotearoa. Aotearoa. All right, again, another transliteration. Most of our names of countries in the world are transliterations. Aotearoa. All right, ngā mihi, thanks for sharing, Ben. All right, would anyone else like to share those 2 lines, your name and where you're from? I think I heard someone unmute. I wasn't sure who it was.
Kia Rosa. Kia ora. Ko Rosa Konji Ingoa. Ko Paniora Ahau.
Very good, Rosa. So try that once more. So ko Rosa tōku ingoa no Paniora aho.
Ko Rosa. No kia ora. Ko Paniora Ahau. Aho.
ka pai. Sorry, Rosa, your connection broke up a little bit, but I think you said it. So you're using ko when you're saying your name, so ko Rosa aho, and then using no when you're saying where you're from. Okay.
Okay. Kia ora, ko Rosa, konia ingoa, no paniora aho.
Great.
Is that better?
Ka pai. That was really good. That was
I'm
definitely
sweating.
good. I think it's, yeah, no, you did great. And I know for most of you, this is like your very first time ever speaking. Yeah, no, good job. So I think it was just that word tōku. So that's something you can practice for homework. So,
I will.
Tēnā pai, great work.
No maji.
Awesome. Kia ora. All right. Does anyone else want to have a go at sharing those 2 lines? If you don't want to share waha out loud, feel free to tuhia mai. You can write to me or to everyone in our chat there. All right. So you're still participating through the writing in the chat box. All right. Anyone else before we go on?
I'll do it.
Right. Oh, okay. Wonderful.
Kia ora. Richard, ko Richard tōku ingoa no wera aho.
Atahua. Beautiful, Richard. Very, very good. Beautiful to hear. Kia ora. And then was it Amanda?
Yes. Kia ora, ko Amanda tōku ingoa no America aho.
Very good. Tēnā pai. And you said that, so America, that you said that very well, the Māori name for America, which is America. All right, very good. Another name, I'm just going to type that in here. Another name that we do call America is Motu Honu. All right, and so that is, does anyone know what that is? So Turtle Island. So that's the name that the Native American people call, it's, Canada, America, and Mexico. So North America, so Turtle Island, because it's in the shape of a turtle. So, in order to acknowledge them and honor them, I do often also use Motu Honu, Turtle Island, when referring to America. All right. Okay, great, everyone. So now we are coming up to some Q&A. So I wanted to leave some time here closer to the end for anyone who has any questions and answers. So I'm going to stop that screen share and jump back in with you all. And just to see, does anyone have any questions? Is anyone wondering how to say anything? Anyone needing clarification around the pēpeha or those 2 questions and answers or lines that we did do today?
Could I ask something?
Sure.
Hello. Okay. Hi. I was just wondering if the Maori have a word for right and left, or do they use the sort of navigation, sort of cardinal points? Because I'm not sure.
We do. Yes, we do have it. And great question. So we have taha maui is the left, and then taha mātou is the right.
Okay.
So maui and then mātou. So I'll pop that in the chat. Maui, that would be the left. And then mātou.
Okay.
The right. Right. And then you heard me say taha. That just means side. So, so in Māori, we do it, it's the other way around, like Spanish. So taha maui would be the left side, and then taha mātou would be the right side.
Okay,
Right?
thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for asking. All right, does anyone have any other questions? I think I saw Benno, yep.
Yep. I think you said about the waka, the canoe, that each group has a specific one. Can you explain that a bit more?
Yeah, sure. So in terms of, going back more to the history of the, migration of peoples towards this area of the world, which is, the Pacific Island region, we've got Polynesia, Micronesia and Melanesia making up the Pacific Islands, and so we are part of the Pacific. We're part of Polynesia as Aotearoa New Zealand, and so in our stories as Māori, we had a great fleet of ocean going waka, and they voyaged from, as Māori, we believe, our ancient homeland, Hawaii, which is, talked about in our Māori stories and pūrākau that are passed down from generation to generation. But, modern day, now we know, like, Hawaii is, it's different islands. So it's like Hawaii, it's Rarotonga, and it's the migration canoes came from those areas to, and our ancestors came and settled in New Zealand. So we were the first to be here, indigenous of Aotearoa New Zealand, and we can kind of see that as well in the language. So Te Reo Māori is from the Austronesian language family, and it's very similar to a lot of other languages like Cook Island Māori, Tahitian, Hawaiian, Samoan, Tongan. And so as Māori, we connect to one of the waka that came, and there was, I think, around 7 waka that all came and landed in different places in Aotearoa New Zealand. Now, my particular waka, which is the Mātātua waka, actually stopped in 2 places. So it stopped further down in the North Island, and then it came around and stopped here in the north of the North Island. Right, so each Māori, we have a waka that we whakapapa back to, and yeah, so which is how our ancestors got here to Aotearoa New Zealand. And so a lot of, there are a number of Māori who can whakapapa right back to, the captains of those waka, and even beyond that, or they can whakapapa back to some of the, well-known tupuna or ancestors of, the area. Some real experts can whakapapa back over 500 generations. And by that, I just mean that they can go back, they can say, this person married this person and they had this person, and then that person married this person and they had this person. So that's, again, us just reciting our whakapapa, and our tohunga or experts in that area, they can whakapapa right back to our, common ancestors, and then back to the captains of those canoes, and back to our early explorer, Kupe, one of our early explorers. So, and back to the Maui stories, and then to the beginning of the universe. So it's an art. It's really an art and a skill. But yeah, so that's how those waka are connected. So I'm bringing our ancestors here to New Zealand, and then, settling here in New Zealand, settling in, tribal groups, and, so on and so forth. And here we are today.
Cool, thank you.
Yeah, no worries. Thanks. It was a great question. All right. Does anyone else have any other questions? All right. I'm also happy to stay on longer if anyone does. I know we're coming up to the time. If anyone does have any questions at the very end. Okay. All right. So thank you all so much. It's been wonderful being here with you all today and sharing a bit about, the Ao Māori, the Māori culture, and how, as an Indigenous culture, it affects our mindset and our perspective of how we relate, to our mountains, to our bodies of water, to our different elements in the environment, our ancestors and our tribes and families. Ngā mihi nui, and that's how we say, it's one way to say thank you. This means actually thank you very much. So thank you all for joining me today. And then I did pop up my Instagram or Facebook if you do want to follow along. And, often I post things about the Māori language. I share about the classes that I'm teaching and also other cultural events that we do, haka workshops and different Māori cultural workshops. And I just popped in my website and email as well if anyone, does have any questions and wants to find out more. Another way to say thank you is kia ora. So kia ora, as well as being a greeting, we can also use it to say thank you. Our language is very much based in the horopaki, the context. So if I see you for the first time, I say, oh, kia ora, I'm saying hello, versus if you give me a gift and I say kia ora, I'm saying thank you. All right, so another way to say thank you. Okay, and then we are going to end, as we do, with a karakia whakamutunga, which is an end karakia. But as is my tradition, I'm also going to end with a short waiata, a short song. So in my culture, it's traditional that once someone's spoken, in our marae, in our traditional Māori meeting houses, that they follow that up with a waiata, a song. So I'm going to sing, a short waiata to end our hui, our meeting today. And then I'll offer this karakia to close off our session. All right, so anei taku waiata. So here's my song. Te aroha, te whakapono, me te rangi Māori e, tātou e, te aroha, te whakapono, me te rangi Māori e, tātou e. Ngā mihi nui mō tō tautoko. Thanks for your support, my fellow kai waiata, fellow singer. All right, so anei te karakia whakamutunga mō tēnei hui. Here's our end karakia for this session today. Kia tau, kia tātou katoa, te atawhai o tō tātou ariki, a ihu karaiti, me te aroha o te atua, me te whiwhinga tahitanga ki te wairua tapu, ake, amene.
Mene.
Right. All right. Ngā mihi nui kia koutou katoa. Thank you all so much. I'm going to hang out here for a few minutes in case, there was any questions that you wanted to ask, in perhaps a smaller group. Otherwise, keep in touch. If you are interested in learning Te Reo Māori, my next round of courses starts in January 2022. All right. So kia kaha, kia maia, kia manawa nui. Be strong, be brave, be steadfast. Ngā mihi nui, everyone. Thank you so much.
Kia ora, Amelia.
Oh.
Kia ora, ngā mihi.
Hi, I had a question. Oh,
Yeah, sure, Nicole.
hi. I came in towards the end of the thing, but towards the end, I liked your presentation. It was very interesting. But I was wondering if you had like this. I noticed that you had slides, and I was wondering if I could see like receive an email of those slides, or like if like they're gonna upload the recording of the talk so I could listen to the whole thing, because I'm interested in like the indigenous culture.
Oh, that's beautiful, Nicole. That's wonderful. Yeah, so Richard did make sure that this was recorded. So yeah. So it's recorded, so and all the slides will be on there.
Okay.
I think that would, be the easiest way to go through the conference to be able to see the slides. And then you can also see what I said about it too, because the slides are just kind of more in note form. So that way you get the whole experience, not just like the slides without the talking that goes with it. So does that sound good? Does that work for you?
Yeah, that definitely works. I was just like, I didn't know what time like they're gonna post. Sometimes I noticed that they post the presentation right away, and some like I didn't know when, but I'll just wait. So, but yeah, I'm very interested in the Maori culture and stuff. I'm not like it's a very interesting culture because you hear it in the news, So yeah.
Wonderful. Ngā mihi, Nicole. Well, thanks for joining, and that's so great that you're interested. And I'm sure the conference, because they select they've got a select ones that they do record, so they will have it available eventually, I believe.
Yeah, but but thank you for the presentation. I enjoyed what I could listen to, so, and I enjoyed the song, so
I wanted to ask.
Oh, wonderful. Kia ora. Thanks so much, Nicole. Thanks for your kind words.
I wanted to ask about the alphabet, the writing system.
Sure.
Oh, hello. You're still there. Hi.
Hi, Rosa. You said you had a question about the alphabet?
I did, actually. I thought you were gone, so I was sort of like, yeah. Oh, I missed my chance.
Kapai.
I can look it up, but if you just give me a little idea of what kind of writing system do you have in Maori?
So it's pretty much the same as in English, but we have a 15-letter alphabet. So it's a lot smaller than the English alphabet. So we have 15 letters. We have 5 vowels,
That's very different. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so we have the 5 vowels and 10 consonants. And we have, a, e, I, o, u. And
okay, that's the same.
So the different ones are the NG and the WH. So those are diphthongs.
Yeah. The same in Spain. Yeah. Well, not the same. Yeah. Well, the vowels are definitely the same as Spanish. So it sounds like a phonetic language, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's very phonetic, and so it's in that sense it's easy to say, especially if you already speak Spanish. You already have that. So the main ones are the NG, the ng, and the WH, which is like the English F.
Okay.
The different ones, and then everything else out of the 15 is same.
Yeah. Okay, that's
English.
lovely. Yes. Thank you. No, it was really nice. I really appreciate the presentation. I learned a lot. Well, a lot. I learned, it's my first introduction to Maori. So I was mainly interested in the writing system, and maybe some grammatical structures to see, like, because I don't know, like, do you have verbs with conjugations as well, or a different way of communicating actions?
It's a bit different. So in Māori, our verbs don't change, just the words around the verb changes. So we have a different word depending if it's like past, present, or future tense. So I guess different in that sense, where the verb itself doesn't change, but the words around it change to make it,
No, I understand. I've got billions of questions, but I'll just do one more if that's okay, and then I'll leave you. So the other question I have is, like, there's the Dani tribe, for example, and they see colors in a different way. So they don't actually have colors. They've got like dark or light, and they've only got like a very limited, way of describing color. Is that sort of similar with Maori, or you actually have colors?
Yeah, so we do have colors, and our colors come from like our connection with the environment. So for example, the word kikorangi, So rangi is our word for sky, coming from sky father, rangi nui. Rangi meaning sky, and then kiko is our word for like skin or flesh. So we're talking about the flesh or the skin of the sky, which is blue. And so then kiko rangi is blue. So our colors are all just coming from the environment and, you know, the colors.
Nature, yeah, it's a bit like Japanese. They have a similar way of describing, actually I don't know if it's Japanese or Chinese, but yeah, they have a similar way of finding ways to describe nature. Okay, well, that's really interesting. I'm sure that I'm going to come up with more questions, but you know, I've got your details, so thank you very much. Really appreciate your time.
Ngā mihi, thanks Rosa, thanks for joining. Great to meet you.
You too. Bye.
Bye, ka kite, bye.
Okay.